Kurtis Stryker is an old-school character in the world of Mortal Kombat, a riot cop who found himself dragged into the chaos of Shao Kahn's invasion of Earthrealm, and finds himself among the Earthrealm warriors charged with saving mankind. A character who fully embodies what would happen if an everyday mortal fighter just so happened to be present while the mayhem of Shao Kahn's invasion took place. As he's a regular guy, his moves and attacks have always kind of reflected that, using his police weaponry to gain any upper hand he can when it's time to fight the other combatants. It's always made his moveset stand out, especially in the older games where there was less emphasis on human characters sporting weaponry, whereas now we have other characters like Cassie Cage, for example. Due to his legacy alone, Stryker remains one of the characters hardcore fans have had a soft spot for, and when it comes to his competitive lifespan in high-level play, he's also had a bit of a rocky road across the years. Join me once again and we'll put Kurtis Stryker and his, unfortunately, not-so-amazing journey under the microscope. I've gone with Stryker for episode 2 as Stryker has a rare case with classic MK, how he only existed in the MK3 style, when it comes to his classic legacy anyway. One set of sprites and animations, you get the idea, but in every new version of the Mortal Kombat 3 format that included Stryker as playable, that's Vanilla MK3, Ultimate MK3 and then Trilogy, his gameplay did change quite a bit. Starting with Vanilla Mortal Kombat 3, it saw Stryker as one of the game's brand new additions. He had a very simple moveset, and there honestly really wasn't much that stood out either. Here are his moves, starting with specials. Grenade Toss. Stryker will throw a grenade at two different angles. The high angle is high punch, and the low angle is low punch. They're generic and pretty average projectiles with a bit of recovery, similar to Johnny Cage's Force Balls. His main move here is the BATON charge. Stryker flies forward and will throw you behind him on hit. The speed of this move doubles up as a mobility tool, but watch out as it is death on block. There's a chance you didn't even know about this move because it's so bad, but BATON sweep exists. Stryker trips them up, but it is super negative on hit and really slow. This is so bad and one of the worst moves in classic MK. Don't even think about using it. A launching punch string, some kick strings, and a kick string that chains into his launcher. This right here is your best string, as kick strings act as a low crush if people try and poke out of your offense. Stryker's leads to a full combo. You may have noticed immediately that I missed a move out. Well, there's a reason for that, and because of its absence, Stryker was thoroughly a weak and rather limited character in the vanilla MK3 roster. This, however, would change a few months later when Ultimate MK3 hit the scene. Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 changed Stryker's potential quite significantly. Everything he has is exactly the same as Vanilla, but due to the underpowered nature of the character in Vanilla MK3, he would be given a brand new special move, the gun, and this is without question his greatest tool. Without this, Stryker was highly limited as a character in his combo potential. He had a rather weak neutral game, and he was overall just lackluster. The gun has fast startup, okay range, and it knocks back on hit. But the reason this gun is so good is far more than just general use. His combos become way more creative, and his damage much higher thanks to using the gun after a launch. It juggles the opponent, and it gives Stryker a chance to do more damage afterwards, especially if you combine the gun juggle with BATON charge. All of a sudden, Stryker has legit combos now, and the beauty of it is that these combos come from his launcher, which can work off of his low crushing kickstarter, a very important tool in this game. Combos like the one you see here are one thing, but in the hands of a skilled player with good execution, Stryker would be one of the only characters in this game to feature an infinite combo. This involves a technique I've touched on in the past multiple times, and that is jab cancelling. The act of pressing another button immediately after your high punch, in this case, to shave off some recovery frames. Stryker can launch, fire, BATON dash, and then perform two walking high punches that are cancelled out of into another shot. This can loop, and infinite against certain characters. This was enemy hurtbox dependent, some characters are smaller than others, but against the characters this infinite worked against, Stryker punishes insanely hard, and if you get launched, you are eating this damage. In the corner it still works, but you have to change the execution a little bit. A late jump kick into a low punch will still work here, but usually by this stage, you've done so much damage anyway that you don't need much corner combo to finish the job. This was a scary side to his game plan, and you'd think that this alone would really push him up in the tier list. However, Stryker had some unfortunate business that would forever hold the character back. You need more than a launching low in this game. The UMK3 meta was heavily focused on run jabs, the act of constantly pressuring the opponent with a low punch that either pushes back for another low punch, or the opponent gets either grabbed or launched. There's more to it than that, but the bottom line is, it's the bread and butter of this game's rushdown. Here's the thing. For whatever reason, Stryker is rather unique in that he cannot be run jabbed for the most part. You'll notice against other characters the jab connects and it pushes back. Against Stryker, it whiffs a lot of the time. You'd think this would be advantage Stryker, right? But guess what? Stryker's own run jabs will whiff against most of the characters in the roster, meaning he himself lacks the ability to run jab the opposition and would be a critical blow to his general threat. If he could run jab consistently and had an infinite low launcher, he'd be more commonly talked about by UMK3 enthusiasts, but now he's generally considered highly mid-tier due to the crucial tool of run jabs not really working for him, but he punishes insanely hard against certain characters. This would be his place in the game. There's not much to cover with Stryker in Mortal Kombat Trilogy, only that he was one of the legacy characters to receive a brand new move, the double grenade toss. It throws 2 projectiles for the price of 1. However, with the extra damage comes incredibly extra recovery. This move would actually be unsafe on hit if used at the wrong range. Stryker is just a sitting duck when the move is finished. If you want a high damage combo ender for minimal execution, this move hits the spot. Otherwise, be careful throwing it out. The recovery really is a big deal, but an extra move never hurt anyone. And that concludes Stryker in the classic Mortal Kombat. Interesting to think that he was changed in all 3 of his appearances, getting new tools with each title. There's no denying though that UMK3 was his biggest change thanks to the gun, and it transformed the character really. We wouldn't see Stryker for some time after this, and with the 3D age, he would emerge once more. Armageddon hit the scene many years later, and the final PS2 and Xbox Original Age game was Armageddon. Stryker returns and is fully playable, sporting some new attacks, with some of his old ones no longer present. Special-wise, he has his high and low grenade toss once again. They are exactly as you'd expect. Gunshot returns, but now the guy has a machine gun! He can either fire straight forward or up in the air, the air version knocking really far away, and his straight shot acting as a clone to Jax's machine gun from Deadly Alliance. Finally, his most important move would be a brand new addition, Stun Gun. This move is fast, tracks pretty well as far as 3D MK goes, does solid damage, and most importantly, sports very fast recovery. You'll notice they are all projectiles, and I'll get into that soon. Stryker's hand-to-hand was CHUAN, and in all honesty, it was very bare bones as far as attacks go. He had the moves you expect an Armageddon character to have, like an uppercut, a launcher, and a low kick with okay range, but outside of that, there really wasn't much. A lot of attacks were single-hitting, such as a down 1, standing 1, or standing 3. His main combo string lied in 2-2, which had different enders. 2-2-2, 2-2-3, 2-2-1, and 2-2 stance change. Oh yeah, and his standing 4 was a really funny normal. 2-2 stance change was the launcher, and his best way to launch in hand-to-hand. It's not a big deal because you can end combos in weapon, or just swap to hand-to-hand mid-combo. Stryker's weapon was the Nightsticks, and it sported the same basic moveset as Tanya and Jax, as they all had a similar weapon type. A lot of his attacks in this stance kinda did the same thing, so he'd often just use the main move for the best results. 4-4 and 1-1 both hit twice, with 4-4 being fast with okay range. He had a sweep, which was very minus. There was some rather easy to obtain damage here, and it lied within his back 2. Back 2 hit twice by itself, with back 2-2 acting as the ender that splats, and the string alone does great damage, but back 2, back 1 launches. The biggest and most efficient combo ender is back 2, 1-1 up 1. Without needing air combos, Stryker can effortlessly bag okay damage off a launch into this string. Biggest issue with back 2 is that depending on whether Stryker and his opponent are forward or back facing, sometimes one of the back 2 hits will whiff, which is a rather annoyingly common problem in 3D Mortal Kombat, and it cuts the damage of this button for no reason. So, what was Armageddon Stryker? Honestly, very simple, but what he did was effective. He was a distance-focused character really. His standing 1 and down 1 were both fast on recovery compared to other single-hitting buttons, and they functioned as semi-keep-away tools. His stun gun was his star move, and it was his core zoning attack in general. The recovery was insane, and on hit, it did good damage. 2-2 and 2-2-2 both guaranteed a grab on hit, acting as good extra damage on a grounded string. This kind of invalidated the non-launching buttons after 2-2. There was no reason to do those if 2-2-2 gives the free throw and 2-2 stance change launches. Standing 1 up close was so plus on hit that it opened up a mid versus grab mix-up. Grab on hit could stage transition, and even though death traps were disabled in competitive play, you could still transition the non-lethal way for extra damage. Hand-to-hand was the preferred stance, and you could learn basic Stryker simply by knowing that 2-2-2 gives a free grab, standing 1 sets up a mid versus grab mix-up, and that taser was a great zoning tool. Everything else, like the nightstick combos and anything you'd want to throw on top, are optional extras. He was a very standard character who had very simple attacks. Could this be because he was new and Armageddon had loads of other characters, resulting in less time to really optimize him? Absolutely, but there's no way to know for sure. He's just incredibly simple, and unfortunately, due to Armageddon's god tier having busted tools, Stryker just didn't really cut it. He's fun, but not that special.
Police brutality coming up!
Finally, on our journey, we dive into the final game Stryker was actually playable in. He'd appear as Revenant in future titles, but this was the last time we as players can actually use him. Stryker's lore hasn't changed much in Mortal Kombat 9, but he's still a police officer thrown into the madness of Shao Kahn's invasion. But this time, he would be paired with Kabal, who at the time was also on the same unit, before he got Kintaro'd and made Revenant later down the line. Unfortunately for Stryker, this would also be a game that he is not particularly strong in. There is no mainstream MK title where Stryker would be higher than mid-tier. In MK9, he was extremely low tier and generally one of the weaker characters in the game. Before I explain why, here are his moves, lending heavily from older titles. Gunshot fires an instant pistol projectile and it hits twice. The enhanced version fires a much larger sequence and is faster on startup. Both are effective for linking and combos. What makes these strong projectiles is that they are instant, unlike other projectiles which have travel time. This gives him a somewhat unique full-screen game, and it makes comboing into the pistol possible in more cases than you'd think. Gunshot can be held down and cancelled out of with a forward dash. Grenade Toss returns and once more throws in 2 different directions. Enhanced throws 2 at once, Trilogy style. Nothing else to say about these though, they are basic projectiles. BATON Sweep. Although better than it was in old school MK, and that's not saying much, it's still not amazing. It's more of a cheeky low to catch the opponent's stand blocking during strings. It's very unsafe though, so not very high reward for a big risk. Enhanced is armored and does more damage. Finally, Stryker's roll toss is an evolution to his baton charge back in the day. This roll is fast, low profiles a lot of projectiles, and does really decent damage for what it is. Enhanced version is armored and is by far his better armored attack, although it side switches, which you might not always want. That lies in baton sweep to stay forward facing. It can be used on reaction to go through projectiles, and if he has the life lead, can use his instant pistol and this roll combined to play a really weird and annoying counter zoning game at times. The strings are next, and one of the absolute main reasons he was so low tier. He had launchers and buttons that could have been really good. The only issue is, they are so slow and take a long time. So he's crazy whiff punishable, and a lot of the time can't even punish certain moves because he just doesn't have the startup frames. A lot of these strings are kind of pointless too, because they don't exactly serve a purpose. They're just kind of there. Anyway, 1-2 is fast and good for linking in combos. 1-1-4 can be a fast combo ender, but it's also good up close as a surprise third hit if you stagger 1-1. Back 1-2-2 is your best launcher, but the back 1 is insanely slow. It leads to good damage, but you often aren't in a position where you can actually land the back 1 normal, outside of a jump in or some punishes. Back 2 is a BATON twirl, and it has multiple enders, but the angle it hits isn't so good. Again, you really need to jail this off a jump in, really. Back 2-1 is a simple knockdown, kind of forgettable. Back 2, back 4 ends in a sweep, but again, it's slow and there's no real mix-up on the end of this. It doesn't do much. Finally, back 2, forward 2 launches, making it the better option off back 2 if you've jailed it just in case the back 2 actually hit. Back 3-2 is a true low starter. Again, very slow, but the back 3-2 does launch and it gives combos afterwards. The biggest issue here is that most of these strings besides his 1-1 or 1-2 are so slow, and slow strings suffer a great deal in MK9. You're vulnerable to being poked out of them at the start, or crazy whiff punishable if they miss, and with characters that have the crazy damage and mix-ups that this game's top tier offer, Stryker was pretty much left in the dust. Stryker's X-Ray is decent, but like many of them in Mortal Kombat 9, meter is so important for Stryker that you'd rarely see it used. It's way more useful to go for armored moves than save bar for X-Ray. Here's what you had to do to make the character work. His uppercut was one of the fastest in the game. His standing 4 roundhouse was his best single normal. It's great for air conversions, is a great anti-air, and it combos into roll nicely. It's a mid and it's fast. It doesn't combo into anything on the ground, but it works great if they're airborne. Anytime a pistol connected against an opponent who jumps in, standing 4 roll is a great chunk of damage. You could cancel the gunshot, sure, but gun cancels up close weren't really real. It was mostly stuff that fearful opponents would sit and respect because they just don't know how slow he is. But it was there, I guess. Standing 3 would restand, which was a common combo ender, into a gunshot cancel. A lot of them give the illusion of pressure that comes next, which is often staggering your 1-1 or a 1-1 gun cancel. It's not stuff to be worried about, but it looks like it should be, which was why you'd sometimes get away with it. Stryker at the highest level would get steamrolled by the game's top tier. His slow buttons made it so you had to pretty much avoid your damaging options, unless you either punished something or got a jump in. Meterless roll was safe, and if you did an armored roll after they blocked the meterless one, it would kind of punish them for pressing a button. But this is all small damage in a game with major damage output with the game's top tiers. You had to take your game plan down to the bare bones, and stick with uppercut, 1-1, standing 4, and roll. Everything else was extremely situational. Stryker just didn't play MK9 very well, although he was extremely fun in casual play. High level was just a different beast. And that's the higher level legacy of Kurtis Stryker. It's really sad to have had to be the bearer of bad news, to be honest, and explain why he's kinda had the short end of the stick in every game he's featured in. But he was still fun to play. The games he made appearances in were some of the more fondly looked back on titles, and pretty much every character in those games were enjoyable in their own way. It's just that when competitive came into account and we started paying more attention to tier lists and who really was the best, Stryker never came close to appearing in those conversations, but I love playing him all the same. Thank you all for watching, let me know who you want me to cover next time, and I'll see you in the next video.
Stryker wins.